Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon and welcome to my new vlog series titled The Post. This first instalment of The Post is titled, relatively obviously, It's in the Post. But before we get to the content of the vlog today, I need to explain why I've chosen that title and why it occupies the present with clarity and boldness. But to explain that, to justify that, I have to return to the past. I've just finished a vlog series of 300 episodes, released every single week in just under 6 years. And most of those vlogs came via request from higher degree students from around the world. And we made new friends, tens of thousands of new friends, and we created new communities, new ways of thinking, new ideas. It was a privilege, it was a gift. And we chose to stand. We chose as a community to value ideas and thought and reading rather than emotion and fear and confusion. But look, I was aware right from the very first episodes that higher degree students, PhD students, were not the majority of the viewers. I was aware very early on that students from all sorts of degrees and levels of degrees were part of this story as well. A big hello to Crystal. But even further, I realised within the first 6 months that the majority of the viewers, millions of them, were not actually enrolled in a PhD or indeed in any degree in higher education. These were people who sort of accidentally stumbled on a video, found a channel, found a community, and wanted to explore and engage with interesting ideas in tough times. Thank you for that. So it became a channel of open, robust ideas and sharing knowledge. And isn't that really the point of our universities? Isn't that the point of higher education? So for this series, I wanted to acknowledge right from the start that diversity of our audience. And I'm aware we want to share ideas where we make arguments, we explore arguments, we don't confuse correlation and causality, and we start to probe the assumptions that we've taken for granted. Most importantly, I wanted to recognise, I wanted to celebrate and affirm the incredible research that's circulating on the planet today, right now. And I wanted to take that research for a walk and place it in different contexts and different disciplinary frames. Therefore, The Post offers a weekly instalment of something new. Now, each vlog will be different, will be very different. And I, of course, as always, welcome requests from you. Yes, you. If you have an idea that you would like me to explore or you found something fabulous, send me an email and I would love to have a go and read around the topic and see what I can deliver to you. The Post. But I also wanted the notion in difficult times that once a week something interesting arrives in your inbox to accompany you on a walk, accompany you at the gym, accompany while you're doing the housework around the house. Now, we may agree, we may disagree with the big ideas that I'm going to be talking about, but that's the point. We're going to look at the evidence, look at the arguments, and walk them around a bit and see how we go and what we find. So what I would like us to do is create a community, a thinking community. So, The Post delivers ideas to you. I remain your humble postman, delivering ideas to you that are a bit provocative, a bit edgy, once a week. Now, there are other definitions of the post that are important to me. I put a lot of thought into the configuration of this series and if a new series should arrive. And that's why the post was important, because a post obviously can refer to a strong bit of wood, a bit of metal that holds up a sign, so it can be displayed for the assistance and help and support of others. The post. It also has that great digital inflection. We post on an online messaging board. We make a blog post. So through posting, ideas move digitally through space and time, and that's great too. But there's obviously another reason that I'm activating the post in this vlog series. For most of my academic life, and we're talking nearly 30 years now, I've been fascinated by the prefix post. We have obviously post-war, post-colonial, post-modern, post-structural, post-work, post-leisure, just to name a very, very, very few. But what is the function of the post in front of that word? The answer to that question may not be as obvious as it appears, because when the post exists in the front of a word, it doesn't suggest that the word that follows it is over, that it's ended. Actually, the word post suggests that we critically engage, we probe, we poke the word that follows it. If you will, the word post acts like a highlighter pen. When we see post, it like goes, think about this word that follows. Challenging word, important word, interesting word, think about this word. Therefore, the post configures importance, relevance, interest, and activation for thinking. So we are in the post, and I would like to place attention on the words and ideas that are often masked or assumed. And wow, this is an incredibly important time to be entering the post, because all sorts of new and interesting and weird phrases are emerging in our present. Lots of slogans, lots of vibes, lots of provocative opinions circulate. And what are we meant to do with those? Now, I'm not just talking about fake news. I'm talking about war. I'm talking about health crises. I'm talking about climate emergencies. I'm talking about poverty. But there is amazing new knowledge that is emerging from our universities addressing these big issues. I'm just going to name a few. Deviant leisure, post-digital studies, pandemic studies, ultra-realist criminology, just to name a few. I could spend the whole vlog listing these innovative, edgy, brilliant new areas. But these words, these phrases, these post-disciplinary tropes open up red wedges and provocative conversations. They emerge in platinum open access journals. This is so important. Platinum open access journals run from courageous universities and courageous scholars who have made a decision to operate outside of corporate publishing. And of course, I'll mention it, the author processing fees. Yeah. These disciplines, these scholars working in them, critique simple metrics and inelegant proxies that exist for research with words like impact and engagement and esteem. This is open knowledge in a time of commercialised research. But it is clear that this time in which we are living is unstable. For example, for the next few weeks, I'll be recording these vlogs from hotel rooms. I'm in a liminal state myself, so you're going to see some very interesting spaces and probably hear some very odd sounds. But we are in an unstable time, and these metrics around us, these research metrics, shape us, frame us, and sometimes maim us. And it takes a lot of courage to operate outside of these research metrics, because there's that lure, isn't there? The lure of the stable, tenured academic job. That was the gold ring for so many of us to grab for so many years. But after decades of restructure upon restructure upon restructure upon restructure, we now know that tenure only lasts as long as the movement into the next restructure. We know that authorship of research remains a profoundly contested area where students day after day after day after day are overrun by their more powerful HDR supervisors and advisors. And remember, even when I was a full professor with a British chair, a pro-vice-chancellor, now they'd be a deputy vice-chancellor, but at the time it was a pro-vice-chancellor, he ordered me to write a paper and attach his name to it. He became the first author on that article, was entered in the research assessment exercise, and yes, it's picked up a lot of citations. He didn't write one word of it, and he didn't read it. But I was in a new country, under probation, and he was a frightening, powerful man. So I agreed. But as you can see, authorships, the right to research, the politics of citations, this is a volatile area and obviously damaging and destroying for so many. Research ethics, research integrity, academic integrity, these are almost glib cliches now of our universities. They must be robust policies, they must be robust procedures, but they're thrown around like cliches and slogans. Research misconduct, plagiarism, and these power-hungry claims for authorship remain the cancers in our academic system. Then there's teaching. We now have a precariat workforce, the adjunct academy, that completes the overwhelming majority of the teaching in our universities. And if you don't want that casual temporary work, then tens of thousands of people do, and they will replace you. So there's no stability, there's no permanence available, and if you don't want the temporary contract work, plenty of other people will take it off you. Now, this is our higher education system. This is what I describe as the interregnum university. These vlogs, The Post, come to you via the interregnum university. This word interregnum may not be familiar to you. It is a great word. In its historical, but also its science fictional manifestations, an interregnum is a gap, a break, an aperture between one system ending and another one beginning. Originally used to describe the space between the reign of monarchs, the word also captured the social unrest that emerged from these periods. So unstable, volatile, violent states jut from interregnum. Antonio Gramsci's interregnum was much more carefully constituted, emerging as it did to understand Benito Mussolini's Italy, particularly Italy at the end of the 1920s and the early 1930s. So this interregnum is characterised by a halt or a stop or a blockage on expectations, and also a parking of future hopes. This sounds like a pretty accurate rendering of our present, I think. In such a moment, violence is used to sustain the mode of order. Now, Zygmunt Bauman, the late great Ziggy, respect Ziggy, recognised the value of this particular rendering of the interregnum from Gramsci and used it to understand the transformations to globalisation, and particularly the transformations to globalisation after the global financial crisis, end of 2007, 2008. Now, an interregnum suggests that the purpose of our universities must change, and therefore we, as scholars, we as citizens, require courage. The instability, the bleeding of public finances from our universities means that scholars are encouraged to apply for grants from anyone at all that will pay any money for any research outcomes. The injustices of our higher education system, like in our population, are increasing. So the universities that have committed to first in family, students in poverty, rainbow students, First Nation, Indigenous students, students of colour, older students, students with a disability, they're losing their public funding, and therefore the pathways into higher education are now underfunded. Significantly though, this radical research that I'm talking about, like the sports humanities, pandemic studies, like Trump studies as another example, this deviant leisure, extreme anthropology, ultra-realist criminology, this edgy research is emerging now. But what's important is this edgy research is not coming from the Ivy League or the Russell Group, or in Australia, the Group of 8 universities. No, 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 no. Instead, this confronting and this challenging knowledge is coming from really unstable, marginalised and pretty daring institutions. So deviant leisure emerged from Plymouth University, ultra-realist criminology sprang from Teesside and is now in Northumbria, extreme anthropology came from Oslo, physical cultural studies came from Waikato, Bath, Bournemouth, and of course Maryland, sports humanities came from Waseda, and post-digital studies, yeah, wow, came from Coventry University. My respects. Again, that's just a few examples, but what's clear is this is not safe or centred knowledge. This is knowledge from the edge. This is knowledge that does not abide by disciplinary rules. This is knowledge for the post. Scholars require new, radical, edgy and passionate methodologies, passionate ontologies, passionate epistemologies to engage with this social, cultural, economic maelstrom without resorting to these bizarre and ridiculous cliches that have dominated us for the last 5 years, like believe the science, freedom of speech, fake news. Really? Really? These are phrases, these are slogans of the desperate. The desperate who have not completed the foundational work in disciplinary literacies or information literacies, or indeed the reflexive awareness that an individual's personal rights are actually not as important as collective rights and the collective good. This is, as Carl Berlstrom and Jevon West have confirmed, and this was powerful, they're arguing it's a confusion between the attention economy and information literacy. This is a misunderstanding of research methodology, clearly, but instead of enacting these really complex, deep, difficult tasks in reading and research and writing and thinking, The volatility, the agitation of our political landscape is taking the best out of us. These movements that we're talking about now, these scholars, this scholarship is emerging from the edge, from the margin. And yes, it is silent frequently, or maybe silenced is a better verb. It is time to reverse this trend. The nature of the interregnum means that all the definitions and the slogans and the mantras that we grew up with now need to be reconsidered. Therefore, scholars, academics, researchers, citizens must be agile. We must move between categories. We have to activate this complex, often chaotic choreography between the powerful and the powerless, formal and informal modes of communication, the stoic and the conversational, and most importantly, national protectionists and international neoliberals. In such a context, the remarkable Wolfgang Streeck described, quote, the return of the repressed, end of quote. He argued that the battle, and he used the word battle, between protectionists and neoliberals will continue for many years, perhaps many decades, and it creates great global uncertainty and danger to follow. He also termed the period an interregnum, borrowing the term from Antonio Gramsci's prison notebooks once more. Gramsci confirmed, and this statement changed my life, quote, the crisis consists precisely because the old is dying and the new cannot be born. In this interregnum, a great variety of morbid symptoms exist. End of quote. Look around us. Look at the morbid symptoms. We are between systems. We need to recommence conversation. Think about what we've lost. Think about what is to come. This is not a war of position. This is a deadly vacuum that kills people and kills ideas. This morbid vacuum was described by Zygmunt Bauman as a separation of power and politics, or, quote, institutional disparity. Institutional disparity. Such an argument, of course, was also the basis of the legendary Giorgio Agamben's analysis that showed that the interregnum was a suspension. That's the important bit of this story, is a suspension of the social, political, the legal systems. It's a suspension, and then there's this anticipation of the new systems, the new rules that are about to emerge. So as you can see, for these Gramsci-enabled and inspired scholars, the interregnum is more than a stopping. It's more than the cessation of a routine. It is the destruction of one framework and a pause. Before a new system emerges. Now, in this pause, in this interregnum, I commence the post. These are hard times, harsh times, brutalizing times. The intellectual in the interregnum has to channel the best modes, the best examples of interventionist scholars and citizens through our history. And there's no doubt that defiant intellectuals in our scholarly history have confronted enormous injustices. Our desire, though, must remain to build relationships with the community that we serve. The problem is that's been infected, careful choice of words there, that imperative to serve our community has been infected by a desire to serve industry, narrowly defined. But is there more to society than industry? Is there more to culture than commodification? Is there more to citizenship than shopping? Is there more to education than job-ready graduates? These are the key questions of our time, and there are no easy answers. But that is our fate, because this is our time. We are the interregnum intellectuals, understanding what we've lost, pausing and rebuilding what is to come. So let's occupy this space. Let's enter the post. Let's make this a moment, a present that is active, engaged, and robust. A present that builds communication, builds knowledge, and yes, builds community. I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.